Hello my friends, welcome to the Gunpla Garage. Today we have an absolute behemoth of a kit to talk about. This is the Osiris Aerial Dominator from Axis Model Works, the same people who brought us the GP02 from last year. The Osiris is very clearly a 1/100 scale Kshatriya. This is the third Kshatriya kit to be announced by a third-party company this year, with the Model Soul and 12 model versions still to be released. Numerous fans have the Kshatriya high on the list of favorite mobile suits. It's tall, powerful, and its silhouette is undeniable. For many fans, this is one of the first mobile suits that they see on screen, as Gundam Unicorn was an introduction to Gundam for a lot of people. To say the Kshatriya is iconic is an understatement. In this review, we go in depth to determine if the Osiris is a worthy stand-in for a fan-favorite design, or if we're better off waiting for an official release. This is going to be a longer review, so grab a snack or a kit to work on and get comfy because we have a lot to talk about. Before we get into the review, be sure to drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Maybe consider subscribing. We're always talking Gunpla on this channel, and I'd love to have you as a part of the Gunpla Garage community. With the YouTube song and dance done, let's dive right into it. The Osiris is delivered in an inconspicuous cardboard box. This box is so massive, even my wide-angle lens has a hard time capturing all of it in frame. Inside we get 3 boxes, one with the outward line art on it, one for the LED kit, and one last plain Jane box. Opening these boxes, we have a massive amount of runners, coming in at 64 runners total. This is a little more than double the amount of runners for the Master Grade Sazabi Verka. The first thing you're going to notice about these parts on the runners is just how much detail is molded into each part. There's very few parts here that don't include surface detail and greebling. The design aesthetics here are quite a far departure from an official Bandai kit, as Axis has focused on hyperrealism over anime accuracy. These runners are molded in 10 different colors, with 6 runners painted to give us more color depth for mechanical detailing. Including molded and painted runners, there's 16 different colors here total. The color variety isn't the only thing impressive on this kit. The amount of parts here included on these runners is vast and quite frankly a little overwhelming, coming in at 1,570 parts total. This is more parts than any official Bandai kit, with the Perfect Grade GP01 still holding the record at 1,250 parts. As with any third-party kit, the first thing I did and would recommend that you do is double check these runners for missing parts, especially if you're in the USA. Bandai's plastic is generally of the same high quality from kit to kit, so we never really talk about it on this channel. With this being a third-party release, I felt it relevant to bring up as its own section. The plastic on the Osiris is a bit of a mixed bag, and there's a few factors that will come up later that bring me to this determination, but we can start with the basics now. According to Gundam, this kit is made of PVC and ABS plastics. Some of the plastic here is sturdy and has a high level of quality. It's a step below Bandai's quality, but still really good when compared to other third-party manufacturers. However, not all the plastic is of the same rigidity. Some plastic is soft and feels flimsy, easily malleable to the touch, and even a little light on the edges. Some of this weaker plastic is for the outer armor pieces, which is good as the rigid, stronger plastic makes up most of the frame. This provides the strength needed for these armor pieces. When the kit is fully assembled, it feels solid and sturdy. The Osiris is such a massive behemoth, I can see why the decision was made to use a softer, lighter plastic for these armor bits. Using a sturdier plastic would have added more weight to an already unruly and boisterous design. The Osiris is comprised entirely of plastic, and with no metal inner frame to add weight and stability, any form of weight savings on the wings is a good thing. What's most impressive to me is the Osiris has a high degree of detail on all these parts and it's well defined. The mold for the Osiris is impressive, and I saw no defects in any of the pieces for this kit. I really don't have much bad to say about the plastic at first glance. It's a higher quality than I expect and easy to work with in some respects, but in others, not so much. The kit that you see on screen has been fully panel lined, every single piece. I did this to really pull all that detail out, and you can really see that on the inner frame. For this kit, I used Tamiya Accent Color Black and cleaned up with Zippo lighter fluid. I panel lined directly on the runner on the bare plastic, as I've done many times before without issue. The liner flowed well for most of the parts, with some of the painted runners needing a bit more attention to panel line. The issues finally showed up when it came time to clean the parts. The plastic here for the Osiris is porous, or spongy. The plastic did not like to clean up at all. It took a lot of hard scrubbing with lighter fluid and a cotton bud to clean up the liner. The small dots where the liner was applied sort of stained the plastic here, which is a bizarre phenomenon I hadn't experienced before. The entire process took me about 24 hours to panel line and clean all of the parts for the Osiris. I really wish I was kidding. I know other builders have the same method of panel lining, so I would caution you, if you're the type to panel line everything with Tamiya or Pore type, you'll want to seek a new method. I can't speak to its efficacy, but I speculate running a gloss clear coat over the runners beforehand would help the panel liner flow and would clean up easier over trying to clean up this porous plastic. The liner didn't like to flow on some of the painted parts. The silver A runner comes to mind. I did 2 passes with the Tamiya and the liner was very faint once it dried. Once I cleaned up all the runners best I could, I had to reline a lot of parts with my trusty Pigma Micron .003 pen, as I ended up erasing a lot of the lines during my cleanup efforts. During this time, I also panel lined the faint lines on the painted parts. Now, panel lining everything isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, and there's no one saying that you have to panel line everything. If you wanted to do the bare minimum on the outward armor, you could certainly do that, and if you used a pen, you might even be able to get away without clear coating this entire kit, as the plastic already has a sort of matte look to it. This would essentially kill 2 birds with the same stone. But if you are the type that wants to panel line everything, you'll be punished without finding an easier way to clean up the liner. Am I glad that I spent 24 hours total on this whole process? Well, yes I am. I absolutely loved seeing all the mechanical details as I built the kit. It gave me so many ideas for what to paint to add even more details. I don't want to hold this panel lining issue against the kit, but it's directly caused by the porous nature of the plastic. Using a pen would require less cleanup, but would take a significant amount of time, whereas my method lines a little quicker, but takes a lot longer to clean up. If adding a gloss clear coat before lining works, you still have to wait for the runners to dry before working on them. No matter your method, panel lining even the bare minimum of the visible footprint on this kit will take you a substantial amount of time. This is simply the price we have to pay for these hyper-realistic design aesthetics, so panel line at your own discretion to avoid burnout. Assembling the Osiris can be a daunting task simply because of the parts density involved with each limb of the kit. The legs are complex as they incorporate a sliding gimmick for opening hatches on the bottom and the calf thrusters of the leg. The manual does a great job of telling you what runners you'll need for each step, and the steps for the assembly are pretty straightforward for most of the build. Your biggest issue comes with the space required to lay your runners out and an easy way to sort through them and clip parts. For this build, I cut all the parts out and cleaned them, then put the clean parts in sandwich baggies sorted by runner just to try and condense everything. This worked well for me, but for others this may be a build you want to do out on the kitchen table so you can spread out. The legs, arms, waist, head are all easy to assemble once you get all your parts situated. The same, however, can't be said for the torso or the wing binders. The wing binders are easier than the torso, but the binders incorporate the glowing LED gimmick. What I noticed when assembling the wing binders is some parts, particularly the battery compartment on the funnel pod, did not like to stay together. I found the fitment here to be really loose and it didn't line up as best as I had hoped. This is peculiar as up to this point I only had an issue with an area on the chest, but the rest of the build was fine. I eventually had to break out glue as every time I'd slide on the battery cover, the mounting piece for the cover would lift off the binder. Once this mounting piece was glued, I didn't have any issues, and this was one of the only loose areas of the build. The chest was the complete opposite. If you get this kit, make sure you pay attention to the LED cable routing, as there's a lot of slack in the LED cable, and mounting the chest LEDs needs to be the exact length or you won't be able to fit the LEDs onto the chest. Furthermore, the LEDs don't like fitting under the chest frame anyways. I had to press really hard to get it to fit properly and had to continually fight with the clear blue chest pieces. Anytime I pressed this chest frame over the LED, it would adjust those pieces to a different height that wasn't desired. Eventually I was able to get everything evened out on the chest, but it was no easy feat. The compartment that houses the LED board and cabling had some extremely tight fitment. I even had to break out the pliers for this to get it to close properly. Aside from those issues, I did have some issues with the front chest sleeves insignia. The black piece would not fit into the white section as flush as I had hoped. To fix this, I used a knife and expanded the peg hole on the white piece, that way the black piece would fit in perfectly. A small dab of glue to ensure it wouldn't go anywhere, and that took care of that issue. The rest of the kit had some tight tolerances here and there, but was fairly consistent and went together rather smoothly. There are a few keyed areas like the torso to waist that must be installed correctly, but these are few and far between on the Osiris. If you make a mistake during assembly, be extra cautious during disassembly. Some of these tight areas aren't easy to disassemble, and the mix of sturdy and soft plastics, you're liable to break a peg or two as you try to disassemble something. Some of the parts like the thighs do not like to disconnect once they're installed into the waist. Once you hear the click, it takes an act of God to get these removed from the waist. If you're a painter, this is going to be a kit you want to paint before assembly, as I don't think disassembling a completed version of this kit would be a viable option. Assembling 1,570 parts did leave my fingers a little bit tender once all was said and done, but at least for this build I only had to break out the pliers once. Assembling the Osiris was better than some of its contemporaries, but it's not free from having some of its very own janky third-party moments. The main draw of real, master, and perfect grades is the presentation of the inner frame. Axis laid out the manual, so we assembled the inner frame first. This in itself is a model kit all on its own, and its completed state is something to behold. The mix of colors and high density of parts here come together for a phenomenal display of internal mechanics and detailing. This is something you could look at for hours just taking in all the little details. This is one of the most gorgeous inner frames I've seen, being rivaled and even surpassing the inner frame of the Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom. I've seen a lot of chatter that this is a Master Grade Unleashed Kshatriya, and I think this fan-given nickname is well earned. After looking at the inner frame and marveling at my work, I couldn't help myself and I had to dive in and add my own hand-painted details. You can see in the comparison where a little bit of color goes a long way to bring these details out and really make them pop. This also goes hand in hand with the plastic quality, as once again the quality of the mold is apparent here. When I build a Bandai Master Grade, I usually build the inner frame first anyways. That's just a personal preference, as I love the feeling that I'm building my very own mech. I'm really happy this was the route that Axis took to laying out the manual. It gives you a lot more appreciation for the work they did getting all those little details just right on the inner frame. What annoyances I had with the assembly was quickly dissolved once I finished the inner frame and took it all in. With official Bandai kits, we don't have to worry too much about seam lines when it comes to 1/100 scale Master Grade releases. The Osiris is being touted as a Master Grade, and as such does a decent job hiding the seam lines. The most prominent seam lines on this kit are on the subarms for the wing binders. There's a seam line down the middle of all of them, and it isn't presented in a way that could be masked as a panel line. Another notable seam line is the armor of the bicep. This could be masked as a panel line. The other seam lines occur as armor butts up against each other, however this could also be another moment that you want to hide these seam lines as a panel line. Those are really the only seam lines I could think of that jump out at you. I left these armor lines blank, but you can see them on the center section of the outward wing binder armor. I think it looks fine just as is. Once again, I'm impressed by Axis being able to present such a large and parts heavy kit with minimal seam lines. What's here is manageable and looks fine even without sealing these lines shut. It just looks like natural hatching on the armor panels. Osiris takes the Kshatriya design and increases the contrast with its green coloring, adding a new shade of green into the mix to elevate the look of the Kshatriya. The color accuracy is perfect, with no paintwork required to get us a kit that's accurate to what we see on screen in Gundam Unicorn. The increased colors for contrast and detailing doesn't just stop at the outer armor. The inner frame saw a lot of love too. Throughout the inner frame there's a menagerie of color separated parts bringing forth different hatches, hoses, framing, and detailing. Even with no added paintwork by me, the presentation here is a highly detailed model that goes the extra mile to bring color accuracy beyond perfection, adding details that would normally need to be painted. If this was your first complex build, you'd get a lot of enjoyment just from the part separation here, because these additional parts do a lot of the detailing for you on the inner frame and the kit as a whole. These details don't go unnoticed, as you can see a lot of them as you articulate the kit and take advantage of the open hatch gimmick. The Osiris does come with some perfect grade Unleashed and Master Grade Extreme type of gloss colored stickers for many of the tiny details on the frame and the armor. I opted not to use these as I decided I'd rather use paint if I wanted to express these colors. I decided after the main build was done that there was enough details already and the stickers was a little bit overkill. The kit does come with some Waterslide Decals and entire sheets worth. While this may look imposing, the decals here are honestly better and easier to work with than Bandai's. For this I soaked the decals in warm water for 15 seconds, pulled off the decal, swiped with Mr. Mark Setter, and placed accordingly on the kit. I didn't have any splitting decals, and I didn't have any decals that lifted after being placed. Every aspect of these decals was excellent. If I had to come up with some form of complaint, I would probably say the decal density on the legs is substantially higher than anywhere else on the body, but you do choose where you place your decals. I followed the guide verbatim and I think it does look pretty good, but if I had to build this kit again, I'd probably remove a couple just for my own preferences. While the soft porous plastic may have made the panel lining a chore, the same can't be said for the nub removal. For nub removal on this kit, I used the 2-cut method and only used my gum primer razor for the nubs on the end of the wing binders. All other nubs were handled perfectly by the 2-cut method. The soft plastic didn't scar the same as tougher plastics would, making nub removal easy and quick, which says a lot as there's 1,570 parts here to clean up. What helped with nub removal was the extensive use of undergating as well. I would estimate that about half the kit was undergated, which helps immensely with nub removal. One thing I do want to point out about the nubs is that the nubs on the P-runner are extremely brittle as soon as you nip the part off the runner, and if you even touch the nub, you are liable to even pop some of these off. It didn't really make any scarring, so I'm not really upset about it, but I thought it was interesting that this plastic on the P-runner just came so brittle. I bet you're worried about those painted runners. Well, luckily the nubs on the painted parts are well hidden by the assembly, with no outward nub marks being present by the painted pieces. Even some official Bandai plated kits don't handle nubs like this as well. Had this kit been made of other materials or not undergated as much as it was, we would have spent a lot more time here for nub removal. What only took me a few hours would have taken me a couple of days to sand all these parts down to get them looking perfect for assembly. We've covered all aspects of the build, so let's dive into articulation. This will be done with the wing binders removed, as there's simply no possible way to show you all the articulation with those attached. The head here is on a swivel, allowing us to look upwards and downwards. There is some left to right movement so the Kshatriya can look around, but not much as the head is stopped by the collar. If we open the hatches on the head, we can move the mono eye left to right. The torso has a surprising amount of articulation here. There is a very good forwards ab crunch. Thankfully, there's no backwards lean here. If there was, I don't think this kit would be able to remain stable. The torso can lean left to right on the waist, which is pretty decent. The torso can rotate a little bit left to right, but is stopped by the power cables on the side of the waist. The rear skirt can swing up and down. The front waist armor can swing up and down and swivel left to right a little bit. The front skirts are on ball joints and can swivel and rotate around in all directions. The connector for the front skirts can swivel upwards, fully getting the skirts out of the way for leg articulation. The side skirts are on a swivel. They can swivel forwards and backwards just a little bit. The skirt themselves can swivel downwards and upwards to cover the top of the thigh. The final bit of articulation is in the waist for a leg dropping gimmick. There is a locking peg that can lock the legs in place. The legs can sit up in the waist or drop downwards for additional articulation clearance for the legs. For the leg articulation portion, we will keep the left leg dropped and the right leg tucked up into the waist so we can get a good comparison of how the dropping gimmick works. The legs can kick forward 90 degrees, but we get a slightly higher kick with the leg drop. We can kick backwards nearly 90 degrees, but the leg thruster hits the rear armor, stopping this. The legs can do a full 90-degree split, with the thigh being on a ratcheting joint to maintain some semblance of stability and keep the kit from involuntarily splitting out. There is a thigh rotation at the top for inwards and outwards rotation of the whole leg. There is a double bend in the knee, allowing for a full leg compression. This also comes with its own armor moving gimmick for the knee armor. The foot can tilt left to right a really good amount, which helps for wide poses. The foot can bend upwards and downwards, and is on the same type of ratcheting joint as the thigh. The feet can swivel left to right, inwards and outwards. Finally, the rear heel can drop downwards, and the front toe can swivel upwards. The shoulder armor here is very complex. It can swing forwards and backwards, but is stopped by the arm within the armor, though the arm can swivel around with the shoulder armor if desired. There is an armor flap in the middle that can swing outwards, clearing the way for arm articulation. The entirety of the shoulder armor, including the vents, can also swing outwards. The front vent can pull forwards and slide upwards, offering us an option of arm articulation that's independent of moving the shoulder armor. The arms for the wing binders can swivel around a decent amount, and the only thing that really stops them is the other binder arm that's on the same shoulder. These binder arms have 3 locking joints on them. One at the base that allows for a very good up and down movement. The joint in the center can lock reaching far outwards and compressing really tightly, keeping the wing binder close. The final joint is at the end of the wing binder arm, and it can swing upwards and downwards a fair amount. Each of these joints lock into place well, but the weight of the wing binder can occasionally make locking and posing these joints a little precarious. The arm articulation is separate from the shoulder armor, but they both need to work in tandem. With the front vent opened and the armor swung out of the way, the Osiris can reach forward about 60 degrees before needing to swing the shoulder armor. This is important as the shoulder armor holds all the weight of the wing binders, so you want to keep the shoulder armor as level as possible. With the side armor flap opened, we can achieve a full T-pose of the arms. The arms do have rotation at the bicep for an inward and outward swivel. This is stopped by the forearm armor, as the armor will hit the shoulder armor, stopping the rotation. The bicep can do a full curl. but again it's contingent on that shoulder armor being swung out in the right direction, as the vent will prevent a full curl. The forearm armor is on a double swivel, so you can angle the armor to get out of the way for some poses. This is really nice. The wrist cuff with the sleeves insignia is on a ball joint, allowing it to rotate a little bit in all directions. The hand is on a ball joint, so like the wrist cuff it can rotate in all directions. There's also a small swivel for slight upwards and downwards movement. Like other modern master grades, the thumb is on a ball joint and can move independently. The wing binders have a small bit of articulation in the thrusters. They're on ball joints, so they're able to rotate around in all directions. The wing binder subarm is able to fully deploy. When it's in the wing binder, it's tucked up in the binder itself and is on 4 swivels of articulation, from end of the wing binder to the claw. The claw can slide outwards, and the claw itself can move inwards and outwards. The wing binder can swivel at the end of the arms that connect to the shoulder armor, but the weight of the wing binder is too much for it to handle any form of position, so it always swings back down towards the ground. The kit comes packed with an open hatch gimmick. After all, what's the point in covering up all those details that we see on the frame? Seeing as this kit is a little cumbersome to pose, it's nice to have an additional gimmick here so we can display the kit in a standing pose without looking boring. The head has a section that pops off, allowing the antenna to kick back and the front hatch to open on the visor. With this lifted, we can move the mono eye like we discussed in the articulation portion. The torso has open hatches on the back, opening the rear backpack area exposing a power cell, and 2 hatches on either side showing off some hidden thrusters. The front of the chest has 2 hatches on the top of the chest. The front cockpit hatch can open, and when we do, we can see the pilot chair and the purple lights kick on. The waist has large open hatches on the rear, opening the sides and the middle in 2 sections. This is a 3-stage opening gimmick and is really intricate and impressive. With the middle flaps open, we can remove the fuel tanks hidden in the rear skirt. The front skirts have a hatch that opens on the end and a hatch that slides down in the middle. The middle waist armor has a sliding hatch and its very own opening hatch at the end, exposing some nice truss framing. The side skirts have 2 hatches, a small center door hatch in the middle, as well as the whole waist armor lifting upwards a bit to reveal more details. The legs have a lot of hatches. On the top of the thigh, there's a small hatch door that shows 2 pistons once opened. The bottom of the leg has 2 hatches that swing open on the left and the right side of the leg. If we pull on the rear thruster with those side hatches open, it slides the framing outwards of the thruster and downwards on either end of the leg armor. We can also pull back the armor of the calf thruster, revealing more inner framing. This shows off a lot of nice inner framing of the leg. The front shin armor can open up, but it really doesn't reveal much. The feet themselves have 2 hatches on either side that open up to show small details. Finally, there's a hatch on the top of the toe to reveal more details here as well. The arms don't have much hatches, with just 1 hatch door in the center of the forearm. I did paint the gray details in here to make them pop. The only other hatch sort of gimmick is the sliding forearm armor. The wing binders have our last bit of open hatch gimmick. There's 3 hatches on the top that can swing open, showing off some nice truss framing that I took the liberty to paint gray. With the center hatch open, we can open the large hatch in the middle of the binder itself. This reveals more inner details, as well as the pod in the center of the binder that houses all the funnels. We can swing the funnel pod out so we can deploy all the funnels. There is a small sliding hatch on the outward armor that covers the funnel pod. On the main wing binder armor, there's a lifting triangle hatch just underneath the funnel pod. Nearing the end of this gargantuan review, let's talk about accessories. The Osiris includes 2 beam sabers that can stow into the cuffs of the hands and comes with their very own blue-teal beam saber blades. For hands, we get 2 closed fist hands, 2 open expressive hands, and 2 beam saber hands. There are no swappable fingers for these hands. The rest of the accessories for the Osiris are all funnels and accessories for those funnels. Each wing binder includes 6 funnels, so we get 24 funnels total. To help support these funnels, we get 12 clear mounting strands of varying length, and we get 12 thruster effects for the ends of the funnels once mounted to these clear strands. We get 12 thruster couplers that mount to the inside of the pod and connect the clear strand to the end of the funnels. This allows us to display the Kshatriya with 12 funnels flying and attacking from 2 funnel pods. What's also nice about this is that the LED will carry the light through the clear strand, lighting up the funnel at the end. While not necessarily an accessory, the LEDs here are a nice gimmick. There are 4 LEDs that activate when you open the hatch on the wing binder. This will blink to life and pulse a nice blue light. There's also a small orange light on the top of the thruster of the binder as well. We have LEDs in the torso, a purple light in the cockpit hatch that activates when the cockpit door is open. If we want to activate the lights without opening the cockpit, we simply look down all the way with a button hidden within the neck joint. Though I do want to say my button doesn't like to work sometimes. I do have to hold the head down onto it to get it to activate. Once you press the button, the mono eye flickers to life, as does a strobing effect on the front chest. With all the LEDs turned on, you have a really nice presentation of the Kshatriya in 1/100 scale. To turn these LEDs off, a magnet has been packed in and hidden within the base. All you do is hold this magnet close to the wing binders and it will turn them off in a few seconds. For the chest, you simply press the button again to turn it off. For batteries, you will need 2 CR1632 coin batteries for the torso and 8 CR2032 coin batteries for the wing binders, 2 in each one. Last but certainly not least, we get a sitting and standing pilot figure and an action base. This action base has a peg for the Kshatriya to mount to and can slide up and down. There's no angling of the top mounting post, so you don't have to worry about the Kshatriya's weight sliding this mounting peg. This stand also includes a nice little slide-out compartment to store accessories, though it can't really hold the hands as they're too big, so it's really just for the pilots and the thruster effects for the funnels. A nice touch, if a little bit pointless, all things considered. The stand has a lot of small details that make this feel like a real hangar type of diorama. There's even waterslide decals to spruce up the action base. What I don't like about this action base is that it feels a little claustrophobic. The stand is small, and the Osiris takes up nearly the entirety of the stand, making all the details on the stand feel a bit cramped. I wish the stand was just a little bit bigger, or that it was just a flat surface similar to the Perfect Grade Exia, just so then it feels a little less cramped. I would, however, chalk this up to a nitpick, as I'm not much of a stand guy anyways. Regardless, I'm happy that this was packed in and it didn't seem like an afterthought. The stand absolutely comes in handy with the next section. The articulation of the Osiris is fantastic, with parts like the ab crunch being a welcome and unexpected surprise. The articulation is what opens the door for posability, but how well does a 1/100 Kshatriya pose? There's so much weight on the wing binders it can't possibly pull off any dynamic poses, right? Well, I'm happy to say that this is absolutely not the case here with the Osiris. With the packed-in stand, we're able to fully utilize all of the articulation of the Osiris. The sliding gimmick for the shoulder armor allows us to move the arm within it a decent amount for poses, while keeping the shoulder armor flat and balanced for the wing binders. The wing binders themselves are definitely cumbersome to pose, but with the locking mechanisms built into the binder arms, you're able to pull off a myriad of different poses for the wings. The opening funnel pod hatch is a great addition. With the clear strands, we're able to pose these funnels in the Kshatriya in multiple attacking poses, both on and off the stand. If you picked up the Bandai Master Grade Stark Jagan, you could very easily recreate the battle scenes between these two mobile suits from the first episode of Unicorn. The Osiris is a little less posable when standing on the ground, but the important thing to note here is that the kit doesn't need to fully split out to support the weight of the binders. The ratcheting gimmick adds just enough stability to the thigh and the foot joints that the Kshatriya stands stoutly. For full transparency, I did notice a couple things. The binder arm connection on the shoulder can loosen up a lot. If you pick the kit up, it's best to do it with the shoulder armor parallel to the floor, that way the binders don't swing violently forwards or backwards. The shoulder armor really should be level at all times to ensure the best balance of the Osiris. I noticed how prone to loosening these joints were as I posed the inner frame around, so I added some joint guard to these binder connectors to help strengthen them up a bit. I also didn't mask any joints during my clear coating just to add a little bit more resistance to the joints because I think this kit is really going to need it. Another example of a joint that loosened a little too quickly for my liking was the thigh to waist connection, but this makes sense to me as all the kit's weight really ends up resting here at this connection. With the thighs being extremely hard to remove from the waist, this will be a difficult joint to tighten up should I feel the need to do it in the future. During my posing on the stand, I was surprised and impressed that the ab crunch was able to hold the pose despite the immense weight of the upper torso. This crunch was able to help me pose the kit in a way that raised the head up, giving it more present during posing, which I really appreciated, as the head is usually obscured by the front chest armor. All that being said, there is an air of unknown with the Osiris. This kit has just been completed, and I even took a few extra steps to keep the joints nice and tight. I mentioned the ab crunch because it's able to hold the weight, but that's for now. If I keep the Osiris in that pose, there's a possibility the weight of the upper torso will completely loosen that joint over time. The shoulder armor has a lot of weight riding on the swivel in the armpit area. With no locking mechanism being present here, this is another area of concern for me. Will this shoulder joint be able to hold the weight of these wing binders over time? I really don't know. So while I found the posability and the articulation of the Osiris extremely impressive and fun to play around with, I am a little tepid about it. I would recommend that you pose it with great care and take your time to set the pose up how you want without forcing anything. Leaving the Osiris on the stand is probably the best option, as this will put the weight of the kit onto the stand, removing the stress it would have on the legs if you were to pose the kit without it. However, I did find that extending the sub-arms and the wing binders to the ground adds a lot of support to hold the weight of the wing binders and keeps a lot of the weight off the legs, thus distributing the weight of this behemoth evenly. For me, when I'm not posing the Osiris for photos or just for my own enjoyment, I will more than likely keep the pose like this. That way the joints on my Osiris last as long as possible. With such a gorgeous design, I'd really hate to see it get floppy. Personally, I would have liked to see the ratcheting joint on the shoulder armor and even the inner thigh to waist connection. I know this kit already has so much going on, and Axis really did do a great job engineering this kit to a high quality, but I think these two small additions would really help with the stability. This is all speculative, and I hope my fears are not realized, as I really love this kit and its abilities, but I can't help but worry that there's a lot of kit here and it may be hard to handle over time. We've reached the end of the review where we go over all the pros, the mids, and the cons of the Osiris Aerial Dominator. This has been my longest review to date, but I wanted to be really thorough with this kit as I know there's a lot of hype and speculation around it. We want to be positive on this channel, so let's start with the cons and work our way to the positives. The first con I'd like to mention would definitely be the plastic quality. Not that the plastic quality is bad, but because it's such a mixed bag. On one hand, it's really easy to work with for nub removal, but it causes a lot of extra time for panel lining simply because of how porous the material used is. This might be mitigated by using different techniques, but it makes panel lining the kit more complex no matter which method you use. Gloss coating the runners adds time and money, as you need to buy some clear coat that you may not have on hand. Scrubbing the panel liner if you don't use a gloss coat adds time. And using a pen for your method, you would be here for probably a century. The second con would have to be fitment issues. Some of them could definitely lead to some big mistakes. If you don't pay attention to the manual to see how the cables need to be routed for the chest LEDs, you could have a bad time trying to open that compartment to fix it. The kit is generally pretty consistent with good fitment, but the areas that are loose are really loose and the areas that are tight are really tight. I had a difficult time with the chest LEDs and found them to be relatively frustrating to deal with. I'd keep a small bit of glue on hand and a decent part separator handy when building this kit. The second point to this con coincides with the plastic quality. The plastic being so soft makes it easy to clearance some pegs for better fitment, but this also means that if you need to disassemble a piece, you might be liable to break a peg, so you want to be really careful should you find yourself in a spot where you need to disassemble something. This is a complex build that some entry-level builders may find challenging, but it would also provide good learning opportunities and experience, so don't write this kit off just because of the fitment issues. The third con is definitely going to be the joint looseness. The looseness in the thigh to waist connector concerns me, as does the looseness of the shoulder wing binder connector. I anticipated this kit was going to have some areas of looseness, seeing as this is all plastic in construction, but this has me worried for the future of this kit. Axis employed some great forward thinking with the ratcheting joints, but I think we could have used a few more on the shoulder and in the waist. The leg dropping gimmick doesn't buy us a ton of extra articulation, so I'd rather that space for the gimmick be used to lock the legs in place, preventing wear and tear from holding the weight of the kit on its own. This would also stop the kit from leaning forward or backwards depending on where the binders are placed and keep the kit a bit more stable. The packed-in stand is nice and would alleviate these issues, but the stand is all plastic in its construction as well. If you place the Osiris on the stand fully extended, it's extremely wobbly and I don't trust it at all. I would have rather a more simplistic stand that was a bit more sturdy that could handle this weight and maybe get the Osiris a little higher in the air. That way we can get some better poses in. As it is now, the Osiris looks like it's barely hovering over the hanger for its poses, and I feel that cheapens the poses a little bit. For the mids, I like to mention these as points that might affect other builders, but are not points that are objectively bad, as it comes down to builder preference. For the first mid, I think it's fair to call this kit intimidating at least and overwhelming at its worst. There is a lot of kit here to go over, and not everyone has a Gunpla studio to lay out all the parts to handle 64 runners. This is a kit that's going to take you a substantial amount of time to build, from start to finish. This review was 3 weeks in the making, and all my YouTube time was dedicated to this kit alone. This isn't a complaint from me, but for some builders I could definitely see them jump into this kit and get sidetracked or lose motivation after realizing how much work it really is. The plus side to this is that some of the typical builder woes like nub removal is extremely easy and almost non-existent, as you can use the 2-cut method for basically every nub here. The Osiris is no joke and quite a big project. Final stats for this build. Panel lining and cleanup took 24 hours. Nub cleanup took 8 hours. Assembly took 12 hours for the inner frame and 8 hours for the armor. Waterslide decals took about 6 hours. This is just to straight build the kit, including searching for parts needed for each step, but not including the 12 hours of hand-painted details. That's 58 hours for a straight build. That's the entirety of Breaking Bad, plus the El Camino movie and Season 1 of Better Call Saul, just to put it into perspective. The second mid goes along with the first, but getting this kit finished with a clear coat was really difficult. I clear coat all my kits, and like I've said in other points, no one says you have to, but for me, I don't consider a build complete until it's been cleared. Clear coating the Osiris and getting an even coat across all parts is really difficult. Most paint sticks can't handle the weight of these wing binders. You're almost better off using automotive paint wire and spraying in a garage and hanging the parts to dry. I ended up using 5 cans of Mr. Super Matte Clear to finish this kit as well. I'm happy this kit came out perfectly to my standards, but that last step of clear coating was a little scary and honestly challenging. This isn't a deduction from the kit's merits, just something I wanted to point out so you're prepared if you try and clear coat this beast. Now on to the positives and all the good things that this kit has. For the first pro of the Osiris, it has to be the engineering and thoughtfulness that went into the creation of this kit. You can clearly see the details and features of this kit that the team at Axis really poured a lot of soul into this kit. A 1/100 scale Kshatriya that's not a figure or a resin kit is something the fans have been asking for years, and we finally have it. The sliding open hatch gimmick is fantastic and easy to operate with no snags. The additional articulation of armor flaps to keep the shoulder armor flat and stable while allowing us to move the arm independently shows that the team at Axis thought about everything to give us the best representation of the Kshatriya in 1/100 scale. The second pro is the value that this kit brings. I got this kit for $150 from Gundam, and this was more than worth the price. This kit is cheaper than a perfect grade and kept me busy for a significant amount of time. We build these models to get the satisfaction of creating something. We want our money to be spent well entertaining us for hours, and I definitely got my money's worth out of this build. The Osiris is not only a well-engineered kit, but it also has a stand to get us the most out of it, a great amount of features with the LEDs and the open hatches. It also gives us a good spread of Waterslide Decals to fully detail this kit and bring it to completion. There's a lot of great value packed into this box here. The third pro would be aesthetics. The rich detail fully utilizes the larger scale to make this look like a real mech. The manual being laid out to build the inner frame before adding the armor is immersive and does a great job sucking you into the build, always tempting you to keep building even when you know you should stop for the night. I love mechanical and surface detailing, and this iteration of the Kshatriya goes above and beyond to deliver on those aesthetics. The fourth pro is presence. This kit is large in scale, and that's something I really appreciate. If you have room for a perfect grade, you have room for the Osiris, but I think the Osiris may even give some perfect grades a run for their money, as this kit brings a lot to the table with its features and gimmicks. The design is also extremely unique and will draw a lot of attention in your display space. The fifth pro has got to be posability. Despite being such a large design, the Osiris is able to pose really well. The important thing here is to keep the wing binders well balanced and the shoulder armor level with the ground to maintain this balance. Using these methods, I was able to pull off some decent poses with the Osiris off the stand, and that's something I didn't even think was going to be possible with a 1/100 scale Kshatriya. The ratcheting joints for the leg was a genius design, and the locking mechanism for the wing binders goes the distance to keep this kit stable and locked in. In closing, the Osiris Aerial Dominator is everything I've ever wanted from a 1/100 scale Kshatriya. This is a design well worth going the extra mile for. Stepping outside the box of anime accuracy to provide more details was definitely the right call. I'm glad we finally have a buildable 1/100 scale Kshatriya. While I mentioned the fitment issues as a con, these issues were rather small and easy to overlook as I assembled this kit. Seeing the completed inner frame made any annoyance I had with the fitment evaporate from my mind. This is truly a beautiful kit. All the features, gimmicks, scale, and aesthetics of the Osiris is something to behold and well worth working past any of the issues I may have mentioned. Even the issues with looseness can be easily mitigated by using joint guard, a clear coat, or even the packed-in stand. I don't expect first-party levels of quality control from a third-party company. I actually anticipated a lot more fitment problems and loose joints and was pleasantly surprised that there were only a few instances of both. The Osiris is more than a kit, it really is an experience. We don't typically see engineering of this magnitude from a Bandai kit unless it's a perfect grade. This kit really feels like a perfect grade scaled down to 1/100 scale. That's how impressive and good this really is. Bandai's Sazabi Verka and Master Grade Extreme Strike Freedom are the only two official Master Grades that really match the amount of details, features, and gimmicks that the Osiris offers. Axis is proving that they're really only a step below Bandai when it comes to quality, but when it comes to soul and engineering, they're on par. This has been a very fast come up of a new third-party company, and I'm excited to see what they have in store for us next. I have no idea how they're going to top the Osiris. My recommendation for the Osiris Aerial Dominator is to pick it up and build it. This is a sensational kit. My caveats with this recommendation would be is if you have limited display space because it takes up a decent footprint on the shelf, or if you're new to building and find this video to be a bit too intimidating. If that's the case, pick up a Sazabi Verka. That kit would be a perfect stepping stone to go from a typical Master Grade to this Master Grade Unleashed type of 1/100 scale Kshatriya. Thank you all so much for tuning into this review of the Osiris Aerial Dominator, the Axis Modelworks 1/100 scale Kshatriya. To be 100% honest, this is my favorite kit that I've built this year. I appreciate your patience as this kit did take me about 3 weeks to build, script, voice, film, and edit. I sincerely hope this video kept you entertained. I gotta give a huge shout out to my subscribers. Thank you all so much for supporting and watching the channel. You guys make the impossible possible. If you liked this video, remember to drop a like, and if you made it this far, drop a pepper emoji in the comments. Until the next video, be sure to stay safe, have fun, and happy building.